Welcome to the WNBA on NBC. It's your girl, Natalie Esquire, and I'm here with Meghan Hall from USA Today's For the Win. Meghan, thank you so much for joining me as the WNBA Finals has pivoted to Phoenix, and you and I are both in Phoenix right now, fresh off of game two and ready for game three to be played on Wednesday. But before it is, we have plenty to talk about because the first two games of this series have been really good, though maybe not for the Mercury.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. And you're right. This is not how I expected it to come back, or when the series shifted to Phoenix. I fully expected the Mercury to take at least one of those games in Las Vegas, particularly probably game one. I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, this is definitely, the pressure is definitely on Phoenix now as we return, turn the series to games 3 and 4.
Absolutely. So, like Meghan, I'm not sure if it sounds like strange to say, but I almost feel like, the away team is supposed to go in and try to steal a game on the road. But it actually felt like in game one that the Aces stole a game in their home court, right? Like the Mercury should have won that game. They were in control for the majority of the game. And then in the fourth quarter, they sort of went cold. The Aces came out in the second half just playing better. They switched and went to a zone because their man defense was not working. And just some really crucial mistakes at the end. Little things like, for me, the turning point, Satu Sabali picking up a technical, which at that point Phoenix was still leading, but I kind of thought that was momentum shifting. And then obviously the really big one, Alyssa Thomas missing two free throws that could have put the Mercury ahead by one, and even if she makes one, would tie the game, but she missed both. Meghan. Now, like, it's just, before we dig into like both of these two games, we should make clear that like even if a team makes the shots, there was still like 23, 24 seconds left almost. So
Yeah.
still plenty of time for the Aces to win the game or, score again. But it's a much different game if Alyssa Thomas makes those two free throws in game one.
Yeah, I would fully agree. And I asked Becky Hammon about just how do teams win championships, and I think it's of that notion that, like, hey, you got to win the margin. So I asked Becky Hammon about that, and she said, well, the margins are about this big, and she pointed to those free throws. She pointed to the rebounding, the miss, boxing out, those sorts of things. She's basically saying this could have been a very much different story in that game one. And so for me, yeah, I'm with you. Aces kind of stole that game in a sense, right? Phoenix had them on the ropes. They were going back and forth. It's bucket for bucket. But what I really saw was the Aces scrambling on defense. I mean, they could not get to a Phoenix player fast enough before the shots were going, and they were having trouble scoring on the other end. So really, it is a tale of two halves. And I would like to point out in particular that the Phoenix Mercury are a really good fourth quarter team, but they did not have as good of a fourth quarter in game one. They only scored 15 points in that fourth quarter, and that to me was a difference in the ball game, of course. But also, I would point this out. They had absolutely zero answers for Dana Evans in particular, who just went like just off the bench, 20 plus points, and Joel Lloyd. I'm not quite sure that they perhaps thought that both those players would be X factors in those games, but they just didn't have an answer for them. And in particular, Dana Evans hit a huge three down the stretch of the game. I think it put the Aces up three. It was tied 82-all with about 4 minutes and change left. She hits that big corner three, and Nate Tibbetts couldn't call a timeout fast enough. And you could just see the exasperation on his face, like, oh my gosh, what have we got ourselves into? And so I think at that point, we talk about like the Satu foul issues and the technical, but for me, like that was the shift. The shift happened right there with that big three that Dana Evans had, and in my mind, I started to say, "Oh, I think Aces might be able to squeak this out, right?" So obviously, you still had the Alyssa Thomas, free throws that were coming up, that sorts of thing, like. Yeah, you still had that, but at that point, to me, it felt like, oh, this is the Aces have come back essentially to like steal this game. And so I just fully expected Phoenix to come in and like snag that game because from opening tip, it was just, it was brutal to watch like them just, I don't know what the word is, unravel the aces. Like, their shots are just coming from everywhere. Kalia Copper's going scorched earth, 19 points in the first half, like just bananas type of basketball. And that just really speaks to obviously the talent that's on the Phoenix Mercury. But I think if you're the Mercury, you got to be questioning what's happening now. Like, how do you change the tide in game 3? Yeah, you go home and yes, you have your home crowd, but like, what are you going to do differently in that game 3 that could rectify games 1 and game 2 because you had to have at least one of those. And now the question's going to get a lot louder. Will Phoenix go down 0-3 in this series? And you obviously you can't have that happen.
For sure, you can't. And look, even going down 2-0, when you're down
Mm.
0-2 and having that kind of deficit in a 7-game series. So, in the beginning, we asked a lot of the players how they felt about a 7-game series, and many of them were like, "Get back to me after the series." I'm sure right now, Phoenix is very happy that it's a 7-game series, right? It gives them some more games to try and like work themselves out of it. But even in the 7-game series, the odds do not favor Phoenix in terms of coming back. Like usually the team that goes up to a 2-0 most times will win the series. And I'm sure Vegas, Las Vegas, they're representing Vegas and betting and odds, right? But like they have to know the odds are in their favor, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure what the Mercury will do, but I do expect them though to win game 1. They're going to be at home. They are going to be in desperation mode. It's not to say that the Aces can't. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But we also know role players play better at home, and they're going to have their crowd behind them. And so, what do they call them? The X Factor, right? That's what they
They
call their
do.
crowd. So they will
Yes.
have the X Factor with them. So I expect, because if they lose that game, that's it. The series is done. Like even at that point, like even if they were to win game 4 just for some pride, so they don't get swept. Like if the Aces go up 3-0, there's no coming back from that. And so, they really need to get to Phoenix and win game 3. But listen, we had a game 1 and we had a game 2, and the Aces won both. And while Dana Evans was certainly the story of game 1, game 2 was all about Jackie Young and Asia Wilson. That dynamic duo put on a show for us yesterday, Meghan. They were both so good. I mean, so, 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 so good, right? And you just can't say enough about them because like you sort of expect this from Asia all the time, right? Like you expect her, to score. And what does she have? Like 28 points, just 2 points shy of getting to 30. She had a huge double double. But like Jackie Young was the story of the game because she made history, Meghan. Her overall night, 32 points, 8 rebounds, 3 3-point makes. The two of them combined for 60 points. That's the second most by a duo in WNBA history in the finals. And it was funny because Asia was asked the question in the post game, but she was told in the post game while being asked the question that if she would have got to 30, they would have been the most. And she's like, "Oh, Jack, sorry I let you down," like jokingly. But I mean, this was just an incredible performance by two players, like who just uh, you know, that they can do this and we know their talent, but to do this at the highest stage, at the highest level, I will never, ever not marvel at greatness. You know what I mean? And when you think about the fact that Jackie Young had sort of a quiet game for herself, although she hit the free throws at the end of the game to seal it, in game 1, she was quiet in game 1. And Becky Hammond told us yesterday, Meghan, that Jackie actually took herself out of game 1. She just didn't have legs. I was at their practice before they played game 2. Jackie Young did not practice. She was in street clothes that day. And so I actually talked to her briefly and I was like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And so, we did come to learn later after game 2 that Becky said, she took herself out. She just knew she didn't have legs. And like she trusts Jackie because Jackie never wants to come out the game. So if she's saying that, that definitely means that she probably needs to come out. And just shout out to Jackie for knowing her own body, but also shout out to her for doing that, because sometimes players just, they want to give it their all. They go, and sometimes it's to the detriment of their team. And I think it's great leadership for Jackie to know, I probably don't need, I need to like come out. And that was actually for the better of the team. And I don't think a lot of players will always do that. And so shout out to her for doing that as well, Meghan.
Yeah, you said a lot there that I agree with. I think the biggest thing that I have been probably quietly, I would say, pounding the table for is Jackie Young. I thought that she had a really underrated regular season. I don't think enough people were giving her credit for her help in the Aces run to get to the postseason. We talk a lot about Asia Wilson, which rightfully so, we should. But Jackie was also a big catalyst in that run and during that postseason. I would also say this. Jackie Young is the type of player that does all the little things. You think about like that Seattle series. She has that ridiculous and timely putback that essentially seals their victory for them, right? She was all over the place in the Phoenix excuse me, not in the Phoenix series, but in the Indiana Fever series as well. The Aces have been essentially battle tested, like they mentioned yesterday, for these long series, 3 games with Seattle, 5 games with the Fever, and now you get here to the finals. Yeah, I'm not shocked that Jackie Young was a little bit fatigued, right? And Becky Hammond talked about Asia Wilson also being a little fatigued in that game 1. But I would say this, Jackie knowing that, hey, I just need a little bit of rest and I'm good was a great thing to do, to recognize that. But to me, watching her in that third quarter yesterday was just, it's one of the greatest performances I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. 21 points in a single quarter is just, that's inconceivable to me. And it actually is, because it's the most points in a single quarter in finals history, which you knew she was going up, but 21 points is just, what is even happening, Jackie Young? What are you doing? And yeah, the quote there says the rim was big. Yeah, it was. Jackie Young couldn't miss at one point. And so I think for her, it's been really an evolution. And I've been saying and using that word. Jackie Young has always been able to do this, but to watch her evolve into this essential a superstar next to Asia Wilson has been really, really wonderful to see. I think that obviously Jackie has been critical to the Aces' previous championships as well. But to me, if the Aces haul off and win a third championship in 4 seasons, we have to start talking about Jackie Young and perhaps that superstar conversation, because she's been such a critical component to what the Aces are doing, not just on the scoring end, but Jackie is also really, really good defender, elite at causing pressure and disruptions and deflections, a lot of stuff that doesn't automatically show up on the stat sheet, or those timely rebounds. So I was really happy yesterday to see Jackie Young kind of blossom, and on the biggest stage, not just for us who were there in the building, but also for anyone watching at home. They're getting to see this elite basketball player that Jackie Young is. So yeah, for Phoenix, you kind of found yourself in a hole. You've got role players going off in game 1, and now the stars are going off in game 2. And that to me is what makes championship teams. We think about the New York Liberty last year, right? You had Niara Sabally was the X factor throughout that series, right? Then you had Sabrina Ionescu hits a big shot that wins that game 3. Then Stewie starts going off. Then JJ is quietly the glue that holds it all together, right? Those themes from championship teams like carry over. So if this is a championship run by the Aces, we will be talking about these sorts of themes that started early on in the series, and really and truly actually started back in the regular season during their stretch and run. So I'm really curious as to see like what Phoenix is going to do to be able to counter that, because I do expect that to potentially continue in game 3 and potentially going forward. And how do they respond? What stars are going to be the ones that step up, and who off the bench is it going to be? DeWanna Bonner has been fairly quiet. Sammy Whitcomb as well. Kat Westbeld as well. Will Nate Tibbetts go deeper into his bench? Those are all the questions that I am looking to see if we get answers to.
For sure. Well, we will see. You and I will both be here for game 3. And I know that we did touch on age a little bit earlier, but again, I just want to say 28 and 14 is definitely not a modest stat line either. So we know Age did her thing. Her 20 points in the first half is is she tied for the, I think it's the third, it's she tied with two other players. So only two other players in WNBA history have done that in the first half in a final. So big time performance from Asia Wilson too. And Chelsea Gray also had a near triple double. So their big three really showed up last night. We will be here to talk to you after game three. Meghan, thank you so much for joining me on the WNBA on NBC. Guys, make sure that you tune in and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the WNBA on NBC, so you do not miss out.